Jackson is having a fan for Phoenix City, Alabama. Georgia transfer. This guy, I tell you what, he wanted that 1,000-yard season, and he just got it. He's got a 1,000-yard season. Came with Fran Brown from Georgia, and this is a guy that.
All right, guys, our 50% off year-end holiday sale is back at pressing the iron.
Yeah.
And I saw Trevor do this drill with one of his students on his Instagram. Really, really good. And I often do very similar things. So I want to guide you through the fields you have through impact, hit the ball consistently more solid. So Trevor, obviously we put the station in here already. Why don't you guide us through the student you were working with and really what the feels are with this station, what it's designed to do?
Yeah, so I think where we look at a station like this where it can be useful is, I think there's a lot of us that struggle with excessively, we could call it, flipping or twisting the golf club. And I would say if we related that to compressing our irons, where the low point gets too far back, they might be hanging back and they get more of this look here at the finish right here. So one of the things that I think can make it easier for us to comprehend where we actually need the golf club to move in space is the golf club working on an arc. So if we place kind of the direction the golf club would move right here, I like having kind of a relationship to where I want to get the golf club to. Because if I just go, flip this out, I actually might miss this.
Yeah.
Or I might swing this over you. I even see sometimes where players will swing so far left they can miss that. So
Yes.
just a very simple way of feeling this, even without a golf ball, is take your setup, present your pressure forward like you would impact, and feel like you're moving the arm and the golf in like a 1-to-1 ratio to where club head stays on the right side of this noodle and the grip handle moves left of it. So you can see this is still in, this is still in a straight line. So this would be working a circular motion around us. It kind of gives us a destination point of where we want to get the golf club to. If I move the golf club at too high of a rate, you can see the grip starts to move outside of it. The club head's almost going to start to wrap around it right there.
Yeah.
We see out of a lot of players that struggle with the low point being too far back, or the direction's too far out to the right, and vice versa. I think you can work in the other way also. A player that comes too far over the top that can actually miss this. So I like using this as a reference point of where I actually want to get the golf club to, and can even kind of do it to where, like if I was just hitting a pitch, I'm going to glide this into the center of this noodle and feel like the club head stays right and the grip stays left.
Yeah.
Kind of that 1-to-1 ratio right there.
I like that a lot, Trevor. One of the things we'll reference a lot of videos, maybe we'll show a good player doing this or us hitting, is the relationship of the shaft to the lead arm through impact.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned there where it lines up.
Yeah.
Obviously the bad version, it kind of shows like a bad impact or slick falls with the club head passing. Obviously the bad version we see is like if this is the left arm, it's the rate at which the shaft is going to pass that arm.
Yeah.
And the golfer usually flips or has contact issues. We'll see the amateur golfer have that club head pass the arm way too soon.
Yeah.
Where the better player kind of shows a good impact, the relationship of the arm, we'll notice that the lead arm is actually still in front of the shaft, and it probably lines up where? Like a little bit past impact, maybe just pass over the left side.
Yeah,
Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like that as a reference point too, like when Trevor said working with a 1-to-1 ratio, where that arm is effectively staying in front of and then in line with that shaft through the hip.
Right, absolutely. I think just starting off, just pitching balls, like we said, like think about the arm and the shaft.
Yeah.
Move this at a 1-to-1 ratio and just land this into the noodle.
Are you going to clip 1 or 2 out like that, Trevor? Just kind of little slow ones?
So
I'll move here for my safety.
So if we did this right here, we would usually go 1-to-1 ratio. I'm gonna land this into the noodle here.
Yeah,
That would be more of that look right there, so I can see I've maintained that. Now, I don't think it's gonna stay there forever, but I think it's a good drill right there. Eventually, the golf club can release and pass us, but if your player struggles with
right.
this, I think this is a really neat way to start right here.
I think it's great. We have been there and tried one. And then I also want to see from your Trevor, because I think with the student you had, maybe we can put a little clip on here too of that,
Yep.
where we ended up angling this down a little bit, using some, maybe some longer shots, but maybe that variation.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if I'm starting through here and I'm struggling compressing my ankles, you're saying, okay, let's take our normal center position. And as I start to work through, okay, I'm trying it from my point of view, I probably feel like they're down the line. The hands are left of that as the club head's right.
Exactly. So the grip handle moves to the left of the noodle, and the club head stays right of it.
Gotcha. And so in terms of setup wise, how do we have this here? We've got this maybe like a club in front of the ball, and then like maybe halfway between the ball and my toes.
Yeah, like so like with your 7-iron, I would say it's roughly about from grip length to the club head, and it's just inside the toe line. So it'd be kind of splitting. It'd be splitting the golf ball and the toe line right there.
From this side.
Yeah, down the line here.
And so I'm trying to get my hands left of that and then club head right. Now, you, Trevor, am I focusing on any body stuff, or do you have a player like, hey, just think about the shaft and the club here?
So I'll tell you this. Here's kind of a neat way. Can I trade you?
Yeah, please.
So watch what happens here if I don't have pressure forward. So if I don't have pressure forward, I'm almost going to miss this. Okay, so if you use almost landing the center of the shaft into this, like splitting the difference, I have to have pressure forward in order to do that. If I have pressure backwards, the only thing that's going to hit it right there is the club head, and that probably means I'm going to be striking the ground too far back. So it kind of gives us more than just one area to work on. It's going to force you to get the body moving forward and landing this in that where it's kind of split right there.
Love that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, get a little 2-for-1 job there.
Exactly.
Okay, we like that. So for me to get the shaft, actually hit that very good. So we actually get that shaft on there, I have to have that pressure.
Exactly.
That. Very good. So I'm hitting that once or twice. I assume you'd have a student kind of do a couple practice swings.
Yeah, for
Get
sure.
a feel.
Yeah.
And then bump one out, and try to sink. Just a little half swing. So obviously when I'm hitting this, it should be like a little bit lower, right? Kind of press.
Yep.
Little half swing shot.
Perfect.
Yeah, so there's a good example. I mean, I hit, what do I have, 7-iron, I don't know, maybe 90 yards. Very low, very compressed.
There we go. There's the key. I think that's the word that we're looking for right here. We're trying to feel like the club face is covering the golf ball more. If we've had low point back and we're thinning a lot of shots.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. So very low, very compressed and solid. And certainly if I were to kind of look at that, I would assume that impact, my lead arm would still be in front of the shaft. And all of a sudden, like you said, 1-to-1 ratio, trying to keep that arm in front of the shaft for longer.
Yep.
Hand goes left, club goes right, and you want more like that. This would be like a really nice way to start a practice session.
That's phenomenal.
Because now we're a little bit longer, but same sort of thing. Very solid, very compressed, maybe a 5-yard draw, about 100-yard shot.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Trevor, so kind of slight variation of the same drill. Instead of having the noodle dead vertical, we have it just down a little bit. And this is really the one that I probably give your student.
Yep.
And I'm assuming this version of this drill, your student that will have kind of too far in and out,
Yep.
pushes, hugs kind of pattern.
Yeah.
So this would be for the player that has that probably too far inside out pattern.
Definitely.
Would be very good for that. So same sort of idea here, right? Where I'm trying to go through. Now that it's at a little bit of a different angle, I could probably even take a bigger swing.
Yeah. So again, the purpose of this is to keep the hand pat moving and keep it working around. Keep it working around the arc. So again, you can see the grip is still further left than where the club head is.
Yeah.
Versus what happens to a lot of us, if there it goes, there he stops. There you go. You can see the hand pat stops. The club keeps running,
Yeah.
blocks, hooks, fins, etc. Like this is what I see, and I see this out of a lot of good players as well. Like I myself, I struggle with this. So this is sneaky. This is kind of a drill for me.
Yeah, me too.
And so it helps me get the hand pat more around. So if I can still keep the grip left of it, then you continue running it up right there.
Yeah.
Basically does all the work for us right there, and it gives us a, I keep saying this, a destination that we're trying to get to, versus trying to net.
Okay, let's take our normal setup position. And as I start to work through, okay, I've tried it from my point of view.
To the body, how it's going to move for free, just based on figuring out how would I get the golf club to land there. This isn't going to work. So you have to kind of figure that out right here, like we'll see. So this will be a start right draw. So I'm going to fill, center of the shaft lands into there.
Yeah,
There's
beautiful.
a really solid, penetrating start right draw.
And that's how you draw it. That was like literally perfect. Mid-low flight, started right, curve left. And your feels through the ball there, Trevor, like what are you feeling? Are you still feeling the hands going in as the club head's right? Are you focused on the pressure forward part?
Yeah, so if I'm being honest, I'm trying to get the golf club to this point, number one.
Yeah.
Like that's and this is where I think we as people are really good at copying feels versus just trying to think our way through everything. And that's what I like about stations like this. It gives me the ability to create a feel. For me, this just feels like I have a lot more pressure forward. I have a combination of rotation with it, but I have a lot more pressure forward because I do have to have some sort of rotation to get the golf club over here.
Yeah.
So there's rotation pressure forward, but I feel a lot more forward pressure. I think both you and I, a lot of the people that we see that are slicers,
Right, yeah.
back here, that's sitting on their trail side. So that kind of sets our relationship for how we can get that happening.
Got it. Let me have it in there, Trevor. So it's more, you're focused mainly on the shaft, like getting this there,
Yeah.
and allowing some of the other stuff to happen.
Exactly.
So same thing here. So
Hey, what do you want?
You need to feel that have that full fade.
You don't wanna say it. What do you want?
To be compared to the first version. It's almost as if the club head feels like it's traveling down the club line a little bit more. Again, as the hands are still arcing.
I think that's a good way of putting it.
Okay, like that, kind of down the line. And also here, I've got that full fade, almost like, you said like, let it ride up the ladder.
Yeah, I like that.
So it's almost there.
Oh,
Hands
no.
are, hands keep going left, but the club head rides up. And then, once I do this, if I punch one out there with that same feel, would you then do the same thing where you kind of lower it down a little bit from here?
Absolutely. If we start getting too much start right and too much draw, we can bring it in closer to that
Bring it
club
down.
path that we have, and we can go in angle.
We'll see if I can punch one out kind of like you did there.
And that is
Yeah,
a
that's
perfect
nice.
draw.
Really good drill. I like this a lot, especially this time of year when you're practicing in the off season and trying to make sure you get a little place at home to be hitting shots with this reference point in front. I think it's really good. I think that's pretty good.
I do too.
Yeah, I think those reference points are good. Trevor, appreciate that. If you haven't checked out Trevor's channel yet, we're gonna link his stuff down below. YouTube channel, Instagram, online lessons, in-person lessons. Obviously, he's a great coach. Go check that out. Any questions, as always, leave us a comment down below. All right, guys, how to get your right shoulder forward through the ball during the downswing. One of the most important pieces to hit the ball consistently solid. I've got an awesome drill and concept for you today. I've been waiting to do since we filmed with Craig. You saw those videos last month. That's a little add-on to our shoulder tilt I'm going to show you here as the video goes on. I'm really excited about that. But first, we're going to go through the concept of how the trail shoulder works during the backswing and downswing, why it's so important, and I'll give you that awesome drill that you can use to hit the ball solid. Now, first things first, we look at the trail shoulder. Let's just talk through some of the basics here. Now, when I take my setup position, I've got my trail shoulder here where it is set up. And now we're going to see Tiger from the face-on version. If I drew a wall up my right shoulder, look from face on, we're going to notice the right shoulder during the backswing two main motions. It's going to work up, away from the ground, and around, like back behind me towards the target. So the right shoulder works up, away from the ground, and back behind me. Up, away from the ground, and back behind me. Okay? Now, if that's true, from my setup to the top, that my right shoulder works up and back around, that means that on the way down, just to get back where I was, I've got to do the reverse of that. Instead of moving up and back around, I've got to move down towards the ground and forward towards the target. Now the trick is that we don't get the ball impact from our setup position, do we? Our chest and shoulders are even more open and more forward and back than they were at setup. Which means not only do I need to reverse what I did on the way back, my trail shoulder went up and back around me, not only does I need to go down and forward just to get back to my setup position, it's got to go even more down and forward to get to a good impact position, right? By something like this. Now, why is that so important before we do the shoulder feels? The shoulder going down, the down part, right? It goes up on the way back, it goes down on the way down. The down part serves two distinct functions. Number one, the down part helps get down to the golf ball, meaning get the club low enough to be able to hit the ball first, ground second. Right, you can see my shoulders down and forward, and I'm able to have shafting with contact. If my shoulder never went down, if it stayed up, the only way to get down to the ball, if I even could, would be to really release my right arm and my right wrist too early. So some of you who have this early release, poor contact, inconsistent game, comes because you don't get your trail shoulder down and forward. The other reason it's important for it to go down, you see this from the down line angle, is for the club path to work from inside. If my trail shoulder goes up on the way back, and it stays up, it shows from both angles. If it stays up on the way down, notice what happens to my club shaft. Where's that going? Very steep and over the top. High right shoulder on the way down, steep shaft. Low right shoulder on the way down, shallow shaft. So some of you that are swinging too far over the top is because your shoulder doesn't go down enough all the way down through. Now, we've also got the forward component, right? Your shoulder goes up and back around. It's got to go down, just cover that, but it also has to go forward towards the target, right? Now, why does it have to go forward? It's got to go forward for the purpose of solid contact. When I get my shoulder forward, that enables me to hit ball first, ground second, and have shaft. Notice when I have my shoulder back, if my shoulder doesn't go forward, even if it goes down, how do I get to the golf ball? Right, I'm going to hit lots of fats and fins if my shoulder doesn't go forward. Again, I have to early release my right arm and right wrist just to get to the golf ball. Bad contact, inconsistent. So the solution is down and forward. Now, how much do we do it? How do we do it? Well, I've got this little line on the ground here that I built in, and this is from the drill we did with Craig Hansen, where in the backswing, Craig said the left shoulder, the shoulder tilt, should be about 40 degrees. And we'll show Justin Thomas here from the down the line. You can see the shoulder tilt on the way back, the yellow line, is about 40 degrees. Draw a line from my shoulders down to those golf balls. But the downswing, here's the key, the downswing, the right shoulder and the shoulder tilt needs to be steeper, more down, more vertical relative to the backswing. So roughly speaking, like Craig said, for the math geeks out there, we like 40 degrees on the way back, about 55 on the way down. Okay, so more down or steeper. Now in terms of the forward part, we want to see the right shoulder get forward to the point where it gets in line with the golf ball. By about the time the right arm is parallel to the ground follow through, and we'll show you the old tiger for that one. So from the top, it goes up and back. And then as we start to come down, the shoulder goes forward to the point where it gets in line with the golf ball by arms parallel, not way back behind it. So we need the right shoulder to go down and forward because it went up and back on the way back. we need to go down to be able to have solid contact to get the ball and swing from inside. We need to go forward to move our low point forward to reduce any fast spins and get that shaft. Specifically, we want the shoulders to turn down at about a 55-degree angle. Like how far down should they go? About 55 degrees. Steeper or inside that wall all the way down. How far forward? About in line with the golf ball when they're right on parallel to the ground. So there, that sounds great. How do I practice that? Luckily for you, I've got lots of good drills. My favorite one that I like to do, and my favorite one, is to put your club across your shoulders with the lower of the club on your shoulder and your club face pointed up, just like this. So when I take my posture, the leading edge tilted down about the same as my spine. Now what I like to do, right, you make a back swing, you get that left shoulder flick right at that. And when you come down, I actually want you to feel your right shoulder with that club face, like that's pointing right behind the golf ball. So if I close my left eye and keep my right eye open, that club literally looks right behind the golf ball. Now this is slightly exaggerated. Okay, if we drew a line down my shoulders right down to the ground, this is slightly exaggerated. I should probably point out here somewhere. But that's the point. If your shoulder's not going down enough, it needs to feel exaggerated. Okay, it needs to feel exaggerated. Now, when we made the backswing tilt, okay, if we reference this ball line here, Craig said to put this golf ball, about a meter outside the first ball, it's about the backswing tilt. And he said, put the first ball just behind the setup ball. And I like that because that gives you simultaneously the correct amount of tilt you need, how far down should my left shoulder go, and the turn, how far back. Should point at about that first golf ball. Now I like to use that the opposite way for the downswing, in that not only does my shoulder need to go down, how much? Like the club's about at the golf ball, which is now going to point somewhere here inside the ball. But I also want to make sure it gets forward of this ball here, so I get the rotation part, right, the forward part. So I'm not only going down, but I'm going forward. I make sure it points forward. Now, as I'm doing that drill, there's two key feels. Number one is a right side oblique crunch, and number two is getting the trail knee forward. So when we're doing this drill together, let's do this together. Take our normal setup. Again, you don't need to get this far down. Okay, it's a little exaggerated, but like Craig says, the closer you get to the checkpoints, the better you hit. The closer you get, the better you hit. So even if you can't physically go the whole way, a little bit of improvement is still going to help our ball strength. So as we get this club down in line right behind the golf ball, I'm feeling my whole right side oblique crunching. And if you can't get in line with the golf ball, get a little bit outside of it, that's totally fine. Just make sure it's inside this wall, like that Justin Thomas model. That's what you get. I'm feeling my right side oblique crunching. Notice my right knee. The second piece of the puzzle is I'm allowing my right knee to go forward. Just like Craig said in one of our other videos, we're trying to get the knee about in line with the golf ball when I get my body to this position. When I be getting my body to this position in a real hit, this is like a past it. Okay, that's where I'm feeling. My arms would be out in front. Right side oblique crunch, shoulder down and forward, right knee to the golf ball. So I like one or two of those little feels. Right shoulder down, right knee forward. Notice my right knee is coming towards my left knee. My right knee's not looking forward towards the ball. All of a sudden, my shoulder's too far back. My right knee's working forward towards my left knee or the target. In line with the golf ball, as I have that right side crunch. So I'm going to do one or two rehearsals, get a feel there, and I'm going to hit doing the same thing. Right shoulder down, right knee forward. My goal is for this to get my right shoulder down and forward with consistent, solid contact. Right side oblique crunch, right knee forward. And that, as you like for me to say, is as good as I could possibly hit my Tacoma 101 setup. Now let's throw a ball from the back of this wall here. We'll plug different Tacoma, no big deal. And I'm going to practice that same thing. I'm going to feel my right side crunching as my right knee goes forward towards my left. My right side crunching as my right knee goes forward towards my left. Not in towards the ball. Not in towards the ball. Towards my left. Towards my left. Right side oblique crunch. Right knee in towards the left. Shoes were all closed. Right side of the glute crunch, right knee towards the left. Okay, one quick caveat for you guys with this. As your trail shoulder goes down and forward, and your upper body and your right side of your rib is going to feel closer to the ground, A, you probably won't actually be as close to the ground as you feel. But B, if you do literally lower, remember I said earlier, if your shoulder stays up too high or back too far, that both of those would mean that you need to prematurely straighten your right arm and right wrist to get to the golf ball. Meaning you're really lengthening that out. Now, what a good ball striker would do, what we need to do as the shoulder goes down and forward, since I'm not so far from the ground, if I keep lengthening my right arm and wrist, I'm going to hit fat behind the ball. So, usually what you need to do with this, which is good, is as your trail shoulder is working down and forward and your rib cage feels closer to the ground, your trail arm is going to feel a little more bent through impact, and your trail wrist might feel like it's a little bit bent, a little bit longer. Is that too much to do at one time? Definitely not. Do you need to do that? Only if you're hitting it fat when you feel your shoulder down. Okay? Is it okay to do those at the same time? Absolutely, that's what the best ball is. So as my shoulder's going down and forward, right side crunch, right? As my knee, my right knee's working in towards the left, boom, look at that feel. Feels so good. Also my hips are rotating. Right, I'm feeling that shoulder down, the right knee forward in line with the golf ball. Looks like my right arm and wrist stay a little bit more bent, a little bit longer through impact. Right oblique crunch, right knee forward. Yeah, and there's my solid high draw setup. So, shoulder down and forward is a really, really, really key part of the downswing. Really key. Okay, you want solid, consistent content. Now, if you have any questions about this, leave me a comment down below. We'd love you to subscribe. Give us a subscribe to the channel. That really helps us out. Click that like button. If you want to get private coaching, right, you can't come fly to see me in person, the World Golf Cup, send your swings in. I find a lot of the people we're working with aren't improving because you're not really finding and fixing the true root cause of your swing. But once we're able to do that, we're able to improve fast, and it's permanent. That's what we're doing at GolfBarn-Practice for a fraction of the price with literally the best online golf coaches in the world. Let's see there, put the link down description down below. Thank you guys for watching. Alright guys, in today's video, I'm going to show you one small tweak that I made with my hip motion during my swing that completely changed my ability to be able to rotate during the downswing. A lot of golfers come in to see whether I'm working with them in person or online that really want to do the same things, right? We all want to be able to increase our rotation of our pelvis and rib cage during the downswing. We all want to be able to stay nicely in posture like all those pros we see. A lot of the players I work with struggle with an impact look, something like this. Very little pelvis and ribcage rotation, standing up, very inconsistent. Now the thing I've been working with a lot of my students on that helped me a lot is in order to be able to help increase the rotation of the pelvis and ribcage during the downswing is actually to focus on the motion of the hips in terms of towards or away from the golf ball. I'm going to explain what I mean by that in today's video. I'm going to give you one or two of my favorite drills that you can use. And by focusing actually on the forward and backward motion of your hips, you can either increase or decrease your rotation during the downswing. So if you're someone who struggles with that and wants to increase that rotation, today's video is going to really help you. Here's sort of the mantra or the thing that I want you to be able to understand here. When I take my setup position during the swing, at any point in time, when my hips move forward towards the golf ball, that's always going to serve to decrease rotation and make me stand up. That's so important, I'm going to say that again. At any point in the swing, when my hips are working in towards the golf ball forward, that's going to make me rotate less, that's going to make me stand up. And that's obviously not what we want. Now, if that's true, you understand that, Aaron, I know that, and I'm going to show you how to fix it, okay? If that's true, and anytime I move forward, no rotation standing up, that means that any time that I move my hips back or away from the golf ball, that'll make rotation easier. That'll make it easier to stay down in posture through the golf ball. And that's certainly the case, and the tweak that I made that helped me so much was not trying to focus on like twisting my hips open to increase my rotation during the downswing, but really focusing on getting my hips farther back away from the golf ball in swing, and that has a direct effect on my rotation. In reality, the hip rotation that we get in a golf swing comes from my hips getting farther from the ball. So during my backswing, we'll also show some Tiger, really good older Tiger swing that I use with my students, and that really helped me understand this. And you'll see, I drew a line kind of right up in front of this hip line here, and you'll see during the swing that the right hip is going to push back away from the golf ball during the backswing. And try this along with me. Notice as I push my hip back, what happens to my hips? They rotate, automatically. During the downswing, you'll notice the circle around Tiger's hip here. Where does that go? Back. What happens to his hips? They rotate automatically. See, I find a lot of players, and this might be you, who, let's say you don't have enough hip rotation, you know you're standing up to your back, you really tried to rotate it more, a lot of times this is the missing link that can really help. In fact, I looked a lot about this from Mike in Alaska. Maybe we'll put some clips on the screen when I was working with Mike, and he had me do a drill that I'm going to show you, where you hold some, imagine you're holding cables in front of you, right? Like you were in the gym pulling these little cables. Let's put that on the screen here as well. And he showed me, hey, Eric, during the backswing, feel like you pull that cable back with your right arm and allow that right hip to push back. And then during the downswing, pull that left hip, pull that cable back with your left arm to pull that left hip back. And I really like that visual and drill. Let's play that on the screen again. Pull that right cable back to push the hip back. Pull that left cable back to push that left hip back. Now, over the years, as I've used that with my students, I would make some slight adjustments to that. In the golf swing, I don't really want you to pull your arm back like that. And so I like that as a visual to get the hip feel. But really what you want to feel is you do the same thing. Let your arms hang in front of you, sort of dead like this. And imagine I'm still going to have the same feel with my hips as if I were pulling the cable. So I'm going to pull that right hip back, my arms go there, pull that left hip back. Now notice a couple of things that I'm doing this strong. This is the main one I did that helped me with my hip rotation. I use with a lot of my students. Pull that right hip back, pull that left hip back. Now notice as I'm doing this, a couple things. Number one, as I'm pulling my right hip back during the backswing, my left hip isn't jutting way in forward. Okay, one of the cool things Mike showed me with a little visual on the ground, put a little B-roll of that, is as the right hip goes back, this left hip is going to stay where that's at. Meaning it's not going to jut way in. So the right hip goes back on the way back. And now notice as I come through here, as my left hip back, a couple of things are going to happen. Right hip back. As my left hip goes back, notice I'm also going to be shifting some weight towards my left foot. This is the drill that I want you to do. You can do this right at home. Hands in front, right hip back like you're pulling the cable, left hip back. But notice, when I make my backswing, I'm not shifting a lot of weight to the right, staying pretty centered. Right hip goes back. But as I come through, as my left hip feels like it gets away from the golf ball back this way, notice also, I'm going to be shifting some more weight on my left foot. Let's say about 50-50. Yeah, still about 50-50 is my feel. And now when I get through there, when I feel that motion with the left hip, I'm probably 70 or 80% on my left leg. I'm allowing that right foot to come off the ground a little bit into follow through. And that little system is really the main drill feel that I want you to have. Now, what I like to do, and a little caveat with that, is to give my students a simple visual for when they're practicing by themselves. And we'll pull that tiger image back up. And I want to give you a little caveat. The first thing, as I'm feeling that, take my normal setup with the club, and I'm pulling that back. The right hip's going to be back, my left hip's going to be back, right? I like to give players a little visual, and I want you to do this. You put a club down your foot line here, in line with the ball of your foot. That's about where your shoelaces end, kind of where your toes meet the base of your foot. Put a club or a stick down that behind you. And what I want you to feel here when you're doing this, imagine that's like a wall, like Tiger's wall, sort of down like the front of your hips. And I want you to feel like when you make a swing here, that your right hip is going to go back behind that line, on the way back, and my left hip is going to go back behind that line on the way through. So that's a simple feel to start with. I feel like that my hips are going to be over that wall. I'll tell you through that, talk you through that in a minute. But we're going to go right hip back, left hip back. And there's a really solid strike. And I feel like it's very easy to get my hips through. When we're doing this poorly, the sensation that I used to get a lot, you may get, when I don't turn it all and I stand up, is like I have like no space. As if like I'm stuck on the way down and nowhere to go. When I do this correctly, and I feel like my right hip is getting back away from the ball, my left hip's not jumping in, right? My left hip stays back. Right hip's back away from the ball, and then my left hip's away from the wall. I feel like I've got a ton of space. You're going to feel you've got a ton of space for your arms and hands. Same thing, club is down here, move the ball a little bit there, but club is down, basically the ball on my foot. I'm trying to feel like my right hip goes slightly back, left hip goes slightly back. And there again, very solid strike, but very easy to get my hips through. And by pushing my hips back away, I've created all the rotation that I need on both sides of the swing. Now, one big caveat with that, and that's how you set your hips and the action, reaction, or counterbalancing that's going to happen. This comes up a ton with my students. What I see with a lot of players who struggle with hip rotation and stand up like we're talking about, a lot of times the player will have the hips set too far back and set. Now, are there some golfers who set their hips back and they're able to push the right hip back, push the left hip back, and they get away with it? Absolutely. But maybe only 1 out of like 20 or 30 people I see can do that. 19 out of 20 people I see, when we start with our hips back, your body's going to counterbalance. If the hips are back, what's the opposite of back? Forward, in towards the ball. When the hips go forward, can we rotate around? No, we can't. When we can't rotate, are we going to stay down or stand up? We're going to stand up. Is that going to be good for consistency, side contact? No, it's not. So when your hips are too far back and set up, a lot of times I see the hips actually working in on the backswing. So we're early extending hips in on the way back and hips in on the way down. And the golfer will say, hey, Eric, why can't I rotate my hips? I say, well, because you start way too back, and then you're moving in right away, you keep moving in. Your hips are moving in towards the ball, of course you can't rotate. How do we solve for that? We solve for that during your setup by making sure your hips are a little bit more underneath. Okay, so what I want you to feel here, and again, we can use this club sort of down the ball of my foot here as just a little indicator. When you take your setup, I want you to feel like you pull your hips forward underneath you. And as you pull your hips forward underneath you, so your butt's not sitting as far back behind your heel line, and your hips are a little bit more forward, you're going to feel the pressure on the balls of your feet a little bit more than normal. Now, the benefit of this, and I learned a lot of this from George Daniels, the benefit of starting with your hips a little bit is what? Now I've got a ton of motivation, right? Now it's easy for me to push my right hip back, push my left hip back. So the hips are under at your setup. Kind of pull your hips under, get your pressure on the ball of the foot, and then push that right hip back on the way back, push the left hip back on the way through. Really solid, feels really good. Now, as I'm pushing my right hip back, guys, into the backswing, I'm not going to go nuts with the backswing part, but I'll be okay with you going nuts with the following part. Meaning from here, pull the hips under, pressures on the ball, and kind of where your shoelaces end, where your toes meet the base of the foot. Got this kind of down my toe line. I'm imagining from here, I'm going to push my right hip back just a little bit. I'm not going to go like this, right? Because then I might just go right back to square one. Hips are under at setup. I'm going to gently allow my right hip to go back so my weight goes towards my heel. And then from there, as if this wall went all the way up the front of my hips, I'm going to feel like as my right hip goes back, my left hip stays deep in the backswing, and then it pushes back with the weight towards my heel. Again, always trying to get the hips farther from the golf ball to create that automatic rotation. Hips more under at setup, right hip back, left hip back. Same sort of thing, very solid. Imagining that I've got that wall there, that my hips are working back away from on both sides. And again, really key during the backswing, as my right hip goes back, my left hip stays back. Quick add-on here, guys. As you're pushing the hip back on the way down, we're going to tiger on the face on here as well. As the hips going back, the feeling that it's pushing the hip back and the hips also staying back in this direction, that's not what we're going for. I see that sometimes. As I'm getting the hip going farther away from the golf ball, like with that drill, my weight's still going forward and my hips are still pushing forward towards the target. So if we show Tiger on the screen or split screen hand, you're going to notice as his left hip is getting farther from the ball from down the line angle, from face on, his hips are moving forward and pushing up the whole time. So the hip, all the way through, is getting farther from the ball, but you're still pushing your hips forward towards the target. So that's really the small tweak for me that I made. When I understood how much the hips towards or away from the golf ball affect my hip rotation, I spent a lot of time on that, and that's the piece that makes it much easier to clear your hips. So you feel like your hips are getting stuck on the way down, give that one a try. If you want help with your game, go to golf.com/free trial. Try 14 days free. Try online coaching for free. I'm going to personally analyze your swings, identify the root issue, show you exactly how to fix those so that this off season you can have the best golf swing of your life, like excellent golf next year. We'd love to see you there. We'll put that link in the first description down. All right, guys, in today's video, we're talking why amateur golfers can't create compression during the downswing. There's two key reasons that happens, two things we do to fix those that I'm going to show you today in today's video so that you can really start hitting your irons pure and make sure you have the moves in your swing needed to do that. When people come in and see me, right, a lot of people have a lot of different swing issues. There's lots of ways to swing the club. But in reality, there's only two key pieces that I'm always looking for with every student to make sure that they can really compress their irons. Number one is the delivery position of the shaft, where the club head is relative to your hands, which we'll get into. And number two is where your club face is, if it's open or closed to the shaft, which is a key position that we're going to talk about. Now, before we get to those two, certainly we're talking compression. If we look at a normal setup position, maybe we'll pull Adam Scott's setup and then pull him up at impact. Every good golfer at impact is going to look different than setup, right? At impact, the handle is going to be much more forward. The shaft's going to be leaning forward so that they can deal off their club, hit ball first, ground second, and get that compression and pop off the club face. Like, you know, when you make a swing and it feels so good, it almost feels like you didn't hit it. That's a compressed golf ball. Okay, that's what we all want to do. Now, different golfers will have different levels of shaft lean, depending on your club head speed, but no matter what, we need shaft lean, we need to be able to compress the golf ball. Now, there's two key things, and I think this one, when I show this to a lot of students, is a light bulb moment. So I want to talk about this first. The positioning of, let's say the delivery of the club at what we call P6, when the shaft lies parallel to the ground. Now, we're going to show Justin Thomas and some golfers on the screen here, and we're going to notice there's going to be a correlation with where the club head is relative to your hands during delivery, and where the club head is relative to your hands at impact. And what I mean by that is this. Let's split screen the down the line and face on at the same time. Notice this, when the club head is behind my hands, from the down the line angle. So if we drew a line down my hands like this, from this angle, it's behind it or inside of it. When the club head's behind my hands here in delivery, that's going to be associated from face on with the club head being where? Also behind my hands. That line is now here. So this same little triangle with the club head behind my hands at delivery will dictate my ability to have the same thing at impact, where the club is behind my hand. That's shafting. That'd be the good version. You're going to see Justin Thomas and all the pros in delivery, the club head will be just inside their hands. That's big. We're going to talk about how to do that. If I have the opposite, if the club head's in front of my hands or outside, so if this is my hand line, the club head's outside of it. Let's split screen this. When the club head's in front of my hands like this, that's correlated with an impact that looks like this. The club head's in front of my hands. I mean, no shaft lean, no compression. So reason number one, amateur golfers aren't able to create compression is because a lot of golfers, amateurs in particular that I work with, are delivering the club head outside of their hands on the way down, which gives no shaft lean, compared to inside of the hands, and my guide is going to do that. The second thing is the club face positioning relative to the shaft. So from the down the line angle, if I held the club straight up and down, notice the toe is right on top of the heel. I'll give you a little club face indicator here to help. Notice the toe is right on top of the heel. Now the club face being close to the shaft, which is what we want, would mean the toe is ever so slightly in front of the heel. Or if we drew a line down the shaft all the way to the camera, notice the club head is on the left side of the shaft. That would be a club face that's tilted down and good. The reason that's good, in particular on the way down, is notice when I've got the club face close to the shaft, so the club's on the left side of the shaft, toes in front of the heels, tilted down. From there, let's split screen this. Notice that I'm able to get my hands forward to get that shaft lean and get the club face pointed at the target without having to flip or manipulate anything. This is what the best ball strikers do. That's what we want to be able to show you how to do that. What amateur golfers do, not only does the club head get in front of the hands too soon, but the club face gets too open to the shaft. That would mean now that the toe's behind the heel, or the club's on the right side of the shaft, which you notice makes the club face point up towards the sky. This is bad news. You don't want to do this ever. Why? Because if I do that same thing, club face open to the shaft, I'll show you how to fix this. If I come down with shaft lean, where's the club face point? Way to the right. Which means the only way to square it from there is to do a ton of twisting and flipping to square the club face. So if you're struggling with compression and a poor impact, odds are very high that you're missing one of those two or both of those two. Number one, we need to deliver the club head from inside our hands. Number two, we need to get the club face slightly closed to the shaft, coming for a heel, and we'll show. Justin Thomas does a beautiful job, as you can see. I've got this club down my toe line, and you're going to notice I've got the hanger there as well. This is still, I think, my best way to train this. If you haven't grabbed one of these, we'll put, you can use code GolfBarn, get 15% off here, support the channel. We really highly recommend you get one of these. That'll be down below. It's the best way to train it. I'm going to give you a feel in a minute, but notice Justin Thomas, during the backswing, club down the toe line, during the backswing, in the takeaway, he's going to have the club head basically in line with his hands, basically dead in line. It's going to be a little outside, so basically dead in line. And the club, the face is close to the shaft. So the left side of the shaft is pointed down, okay? Now for me, when I have the hanger set on here, I've got it angled at about, let's say 2 o'clock, a little bit to the right. For me, I love this because all I can do is get that on my wrist. And then boom, I've got my takeaway. Now from here, okay, this doesn't guarantee anything, but it sets us up for a good odds are in our favor. From here, when we move down, we now want to deliver it where the club head's slightly inside our hands. I'm going to use this hanger to stay on my wrist, so club head's slightly inside. And notice the toe's still ever so slightly in front of the heel. Face is close to the shaft. Very easy to deliver solid shafting and compress it from there. Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about the hanger training it. I absolutely love this. I firmly believe that this is good for every single golfer. This hanger here creates and controls what I think is the most important part of the swing, which is the wrist angle. It snaps right on. It takes me probably 30 seconds to put on. I can put it right in my golf bag. And best of all, you can hit balls with it. You actually hit balls with it. So I love this hanger training. Look at when I do that well, how that sits on my forearm. Now watch when I cut my wrist and it comes off. Immediate feedback for where my wrist band was at. No one. I can have too flat of the left wrist. One of the few things that all good ball strikers have when trying to have flat left wrist, right? Super easy to use, incredible feedback. You're gonna absolutely love it. We'll put all the details down in the description down below. So how I train this in my own swing, how I work with a lot of players in person, is twofold. Number one, I like to hang on. Very expensive, very effective, highly recommended. And then I like to put a club down the toe line to start with. This is like an easy starting drill. We can build upon it. But what I like to feel when I go back to do this is I feel like a little bit of chest rotation during the takeaway. Club's going to go down the toe line. And in order to keep this club face set here nicely, I've got the hanger on my wrist. The feel that I work a lot with players on is knuckles down. So the knuckles of your left hand feel slightly down towards the ground, or you can feel the glove logo slightly down, or the right palm slightly down. And you'll notice with Justin Thomas, he doesn't point straight down towards the ground, but it's slightly down from horizontal. If I make my takeaway and I point it up towards the sky, what happens? Club face way too open. So I go a little bit of chest rotation, knuckles down here, and then when I go through, I feel like I get a little bit of belly button towards the target and get my knuckles down again. Now I use this little reference point, knuckles down, club right down the toe line, knuckles down, club inside the toe line. Knuckles down, club down the toe line, knuckles down, club inside the toe line. So to keep the club head inside, I feel my left knuckles down towards the ground, my right palm down towards the ground, and notice my right wrist is nicely bent back the whole time. As soon as I go knuckles up and flatten the wrist, right now that club head's in front of my hands, club face is too open, no shaft. Knuckles down, club head in my hands. So just with the mantra here, with the hanger on, I'm going to feel like I get the hanger on my wrist, knuckles down my toe line, and then I'm going to go knuckles down, club head inside my hands, inside the toe line, really feel like I'm cranking the hanger against my wrist band. That's the feel. That's going to make it very easy from that position. Again, check out this club face. Very easy from that position to get the shaft thing I want to impact, and I don't have to manipulate anything. So here, boom, I'm good. Now it's very easy to get to there. Look how square that club face is with that shaft. From here, no chance I'm doing it. Right, I'm going to football bend. So knuckles down the toe line, knuckles down, inside the toe line. That's the mantra that I want you to have. Knuckles down the toe line, and then knuckles down, inside the toe line. That's my 8-iron, Tacoma 8-iron. High, probably about a 5-yard draw, little wind right to left, very, very solid. So if you're not compressing it, you want to look at these areas and make sure you're delivering the club in the correct position. Getting the takeaway correct doesn't guarantee it, but it increases the odds of success. If you get it good here, then it doesn't really matter so much what you do from there to the top, so long as you get it good again here. Like if you can control these two areas, knuckles down, club in line with the hands, knuckles down, club inside the hands. Control those two areas. We don't have to worry about a lot else. Knuckles down, club down the toe line, knuckles down, club inside. And again, this is where I really like the hanger. Very solid, a little bit of a bigger draw there with their weight right left, but I take that every time. This is where I really like the hanger because it gives me feedback, right? I like simple things you can hit balls with, they're inexpensive, and they give you feedback right away. The hanger is so good for that. Get it on your wrist in the takeaway, crank it down. Again, I like to set it where it's angled here, a little bit at the setup position, maybe at about 1 o'clock. So I feel like my chest goes a little bit away from the target, knuckles down, and then I feel like on the way down, my belly button towards the target, knuckles down, keeping that club head inside my hands with those wrist angles. Knuckles down, knuckles down. Very solid. So again, as I'm putting the club in those positions in motion, of course I'm moving my body I like those little subtle feels of a little bit of chest rotation early with it, a little bit of belt buckle movement, or core rotation on the way down, keeping those wrist angles bent back to keep the club head inside. So important. If you haven't grabbed the hanger before, highly recommend it. Again, Code Cadorno, help support us. We'll help you with your game. We appreciate that. If you want some coaching, you can still try online lessons with me completely free. Cadornogolf.com/free trial. 14 days for free. I'm going to personally analyze your swings, show you exactly what to fix, how to fix it. If you're still struggling with stuff, we can fix all that. You can try it risk free. Would love to see you there. Thank you guys for watching. Alright guys, in today's video, I'm going to show you something I did with a recent student of mine on how to hinge the club, set the club properly during the golf swing that will make things very simple for you. There's 3 key checkpoints and 1 really big key that you must do. I'm going to show you in today's video. It's going to really help you sit and play your golf swing. Let's dive right in. Alright guys, so I had a recent student come in asking me about hinging the wrist during the golf swing. That's a misconception. And credit to Mike Alaska, he had watched Mike's video. Mike did a great video on wrist setting. I just want to give a couple of things here for you guys that I gave my students. And basically when it comes to hinging the wrist and doing the backswing, I sort of have 1 of 2 ways that I can go that I see with students that come in. I can hinge the club correctly during the backswing in an easy way that makes the rest of the swing really simple. Or I can do some things as I go back in various ways to hinge the club that makes things very difficult. Both of those options can work, but doing it the way that I'm going to show you will make it higher likelihood that it works and much more simple throughout the swing. Now there's 3 key checkpoints and 1 really, really important factor that we'll talk about. The 3 things I want to make sure you do is go through each one during the backswing. We have to learn how to get the left wrist from being cupped or bent here at setup to flat. That's a big one. We need to be able to hinge the club vertically about 90 to 100 degrees by this left arm parallel. And we need to be able to hinge the club relatively on plane, which means the butt of the club points right at or just inside this ball target line. All 3 of those. Left wrist needs to go from cup to flat. I need to hinge the club vertically about 90 to 100 degrees. And I need to have the club basically on an angle that's on plane. If I can do all 3 of those, I'm going to have a really easy time for the rest of my swing. But any one of those that's off needs more work later on. And the drill that I showed my students was really to help clarify that 1 trick, right? The 1 piece that's so important. And what makes this hard is when you take your setup position and you hold it with your lead hand. It depends a little bit on your grip style, but we're going to have some amount of angle or cup in my wrist that's set up from the top angle, while from the down the line angle, the club is relatively unhinged. So we'll pull Adam Scott's model, let's say 140 or 145 degrees. Okay? Now when I make my backswing, I need to add vertical hinge to my wrist to the point where the shaft gets to about a 90-degree angle by left arm parallel. But when you do this, and I want you to do this with your left hand, hinge your left wrist up towards your face. And what happens to that angle in your wrist? For most of us, that angle is going to get even bigger. Even bigger. Meaning this cup that I have it set up gets even more cup. The more I hinge my wrist up, the more cup the wrist gets. Now that's a problem when I make a swing with some forearm rotation, because the club face is always going to be too open. Okay, so just to give you a visual, when my left wrist stays too cupped, with arm rotation, during the backswing, which we all have, when I hinge my wrist, it cups more. When I do it on the way back with arm rotation, the face is always going to be open. Okay, so if I bring that down, you see the toe, so you have higher likelihood that it works, and much more simple throughout the swing. Now there's 3 key checkpoints and 1 really, really important factor that we'll talk about. The 3 things I want to make sure you do, and then we'll go through each one during the backswing. We have to learn how to get the left wrist from being cupped or bent here at setup to flat. That's a big one. We need to be able to hinge the club vertically to about 90 to 100 degrees by the left arm parallel. And we need to be able to hinge the club relatively on plane, which means the butt of the club points right at or just inside this ball target line. All three of those. Left wrist needs to go from cup to flat. I need to hinge the club vertically about 90 to 100 degrees. And I need to have the club basically on an angle that's off plane. If I can do all three of those, I'm going to have a really easy time for the rest of my swing. But any one of those that's off needs more work later on. And the drill that I showed my student was really to help clarify that one shred, right? The one piece that's so important. And what makes this hard is when you take your setup position and you hold it with your knee. Depends a little bit on your grip style. Really important factor that we'll talk about. The three things I want to make sure you do, and then we'll go through each one during the back. We have to learn how to get the left wrist from being cupped or bent here at setup to flat. That's a big one. We need to be able to hinge the club vertically to about 90 to 100 degrees by this left arm parallel. And we need to be able to hinge the club relatively on plane, which means the butt of the club points right at or just inside this ball target line. All three of those. Left wrist needs to go from cup to flat. I need to hinge the club vertically about 90 to 100 degrees. And I need to have the club basically on an angle that's on plane. If I can do all three of those, I'm going to have a really easy time for the rest of my swing. But any one of those that's off needs more work later on. And the drill that I showed my student, club relatively on plane, which means the butt of the club points right at or just inside this ball target line. All three of those. Left wrist needs to go from cup to flat. I need to hinge the club vertically about 90 to 100 degrees. And I need to have the club basically on an angle that's on plane. If I can do all three of those, I'm going to have a really easy time for the rest of my swing. But any one of those that's off needs more work later on. And the drill that I showed my students was really to help clarify that one shred, right? The one piece that's so important. And what makes this hard is when you take your setup position and you hold it with your lead hand. It depends a little bit on your grip style, but we're going to have some amount of angle or cup in my wrist that's set up from the face-on angle, while from the down-the-line angle, the club is relatively unhinged. So we'll pull out the Scottish model, let's say 140 or 145 degrees. Okay? Now, when I make my backswing, I need to add vertical hinge to my wrist to the point where the shaft gets to about a 90-degree angle by left arm parallel. But when you do this, and I want you to do this with your left hand, hinge your left wrist up towards your face. And what happens to that angle in your wrist? For most of us, that angle is going to get even bigger. Even bigger. Meaning this cup that I had it set up gets even more cupped. The more I hinge my wrist up, the more cupped the wrist gets. Now that's a problem when I make a swing with some forearm rotation because the club face is always going to be too open. Okay, so just to give you a visual, when my left wrist stays too cupped with arm rotation during the backswing, which we all have, when I hinge my wrist, it cups more. When I do it on the way back with arm rotation, the face is always going to be open. Okay, so if I bring that down, you see the toe is too far behind the heel. That means a lot more work later on. So from this position, while we hinge that wrist up, we need to be able to flatten out that lead wrist angle. That's the trick. That's what keeps the club face square during the backswing. Now, why do we need to hinge the club vertically at all? It's really for two reasons. One, for power. Okay, so if I have this 140-degree angle, during the takeaway, not a ton of hinging, getting a little bit of hinging. Okay, by the time he gets to left arm parallel, he's at that 90, and as he finishes his turn, he gets to about 75. But the reason I need to be able to hinge that out on the way back is so that I can unhinge it on the way down. And that's a power source. Imagine I make a golf swing where I keep this 140-degree angle the whole time. Okay, I can still hit a ball like this, but there's very little power. Like if I try and literally keep that wrist hinge the same the whole way, I hit a full swing 7-iron there, probably 120 yards. When I add my wrist hinge, and I go up and down, and try and do the same thing, that 7-iron now goes like 180 yards. So the wrist has to hinge up and down for speed purposes. The other reason it needs to hinge is what goes up must come down. Meaning that first ball I hit, I don't know if you noticed, it's very thin. The second ball I hit is very solid. Because the ball's on the ground with an iron, I need the club head to travel some amount down to hit the ball. Ball first, ground second. For me to get my wrist to hinge down to hit the ball, I have to go the long way. Up. So I have wrist hinge for power and to be able to hit the ball solid. But again, if you hold it with your left hand, that cup increases. And that's where the trail hand really comes in. Now you can feel with either one, but what I really want you to feel during the swing, this is the drill, is I want you to be able to take your left hand and hinge the club up towards your face and hinge it down and hit the mat. This is what I did with my student. I'll back up from the ball. So up towards you to about 90 degrees, hit the ground. 2, 3. That's about how much hinge I'm looking for. If I want to get to that 75 like Adam Scott, I'll go just past parallel. Up and down. Feel what your left wrist is doing. Your left wrist is controlling the up and down motion. Now, if that's true, when I go back, I can feel that same motion where I go just straight up. But how do I flatten out? That's where the right hand comes in. So I want you to do 3 with this left hand. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Now take your right hand. Now you're going to feel no up and down with your right hand. I just want you to feel back. Back means your knuckles towards the back of your forearm. So the hand's just going straight back this way with your right hand. And I'm doing that from about setup to left arm parallel. Okay? So right hand goes back. Now notice as I'm doing that, where's the club here? It's about, what, 90 degrees to my arm. And where's the butt of the club going? Basically right at the ball target. So there's an angle I'm trying to hinge on. Right? Let's pull that list back up. We want the left wrist flat. We want the club about 90 hinged, and we want it on plane. So what I'm going to do, we'll work through this drill here, and how I want you to practice this is I want you to feel the left hand going up and down, and I want you to feel the right hand going back and forth separate, and then we're going to retain those feels together. So if you can do this, pause the video, come back and watch it, we're just going to feel this with me. Let's go up and down with the left wrist, just beyond 90 is fine. Up, down, 1, 2, 3. Thumb the mat, don't be afraid of that. That's the piece that's going to help you hit the ground during the downswing. If you're not taking enough dip, or you're unable to hit the ground, you can do that piece more. So up and down 3 times, right wrist goes back. No up motion at all, just back. So I'm kind of feeling like my palm is facing towards the camera. The back of my knuckles are going towards the back of my forearm. It feels a little bit like the club face is more pointed towards the camera. Certainly, the toes in front of the heel. So we'll do that 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Always hitting 90 degrees, always on plane. Now, once I do 3 of each individual, I'm going to put my hands together and feel the same thing. Feel the left wrist go up and the right wrist back. Now, when I'm pulling my right wrist back, what is that doing to this cup in my lead wrist? It's flattening. So you flatten your left wrist by pulling back your right wrist. You want to flick your right wrist about almost as bent back as you can get it. Left wrist goes up, right wrist goes back. Left wrist goes up, right wrist goes back. Hinging the club about to 90 degrees and right on plane. Just inside this ball target. Just so you can see that. And we'll put some models on the screen. If I was doing that here, left wrist goes up, right wrist goes back. That's going to point right at it just inside the ball. Okay? So what I want you to do is hit some shots where you feel that. 3 just left hand, 3 just right hand, 3 together, hit a ball. Come on, that's 9 practice swings. And 1 hit. Yeah, that's a good 10-ball practice set. Now when I hit, I'm going to feel the same thing. Left wrist goes up, right wrist goes back. In terms of amounts, and there's a nice high 7-iron draw. In terms of amounts, kind of what that Adam Scott model. You know, roughly 90 to 100 degrees by left arm parallel. And then from that spot, say, well, what do I do from there? Really just keep turning. Technically speaking, from here, my students say, what do I do from there? I said, well, just finish your turn. And it'll naturally continue changing a little. It'll go from, let's say, 90 degrees to 75. And there'll be a little bit of folding of your trail arm. That'll happen by itself. The simplified version is just complete your swing. The more complicated is keep turning and keep folding the trail arm a little bit, right? But you want to focus on those same pieces. Left wrist up and down. Right wrist back. This is taking care of the club face part. Flagging the left wrist. Always hinging it with the butt of the thumb on or inside the ball on it. And I'm going to feel the same thing, left wrist up, right wrist back together. And that gives me both, right? That gives me, why am I hinging the club? I need to hinge the club for power and to be able to hit the ball on the ground. They'll take a dip, hit the ground, hit the club and go down. What goes up must come down. Why is my right wrist bending back? Close the club face. Right? I need to close the club face to be able to hit the ball reasonably at the target. Also load the ball on, up. And when in doubt, I wouldn't mind overdoing it. Like a lot of people I work with who can't hit the ground, once you do this, like this is how you hit the ground. Like a hammer. Ready? Right wrist back. Right wrist back. Right wrist back. A lot of different drills. If you check the videos, you know, some players will do it earlier, some players will do it later. All things equal, I would say the better players probably tend to do it a little bit more later. All things equal, there's more power there, but maybe a little bit less control. If you do want to hinge it a little bit earlier, I'm okay with that. Probably a little more control, maybe a little less power, depending upon what you're seeking. But the neutral level is like, hey, I'm doing it progressively the whole time. Kind of like Adam Scott. He goes from 140 to like mid 130s. He didn't hinge the whole time. He's not going like this. He can, okay, but he's kind of neutral here. A lot of body motion. Am I doing just the hinge of my body? No, of course, there's a good amount of body motion. I'll get into about 90 and then 75. The left wrist is flattening, the club's on plane. This is always a really nice way to do it. The left wrist goes up. We get rid of that cup by feeling the right wrist back. Now, if you don't love the right wrist back, and you want to think you're curling those left wrists, you know, curling the glove logo away from you, or curling the fingers under it and flatten out, perfectly okay with that. What I like, let's see, like left wrist up, right wrist back, hit those 3 checkpoints that are on the screen. I can get the solid contact and the straight shots. You know, a little micro piecing with that. My student and I did talk about towards the end. He's like, hey, what parts of the hand, wrists are controlling? Should I feel more left? Should I feel more right? Either and or both, depending on what you need more. If you need to square the face more, feel the right wrist bending back more, the left wrist curling more. If you need more vertical hinging, you can feel more the left wrist up part. Now, one other little caveat there is too, if I want to feel specific parts of my hand, it's mainly in the bottom 3 fingers of my left hand and making sure my heel pad is on top. It's hard to hinge the club if the club's in your palm. Okay, so you want to make sure the grip's a little more in your fingers. It's the base of the 3 hands. You should be able to hinge the club up if you take your index finger and your thumb off. That's how you know your heel pad's on top. So a little caveat with that. So if anything, the bottom 3 of the left hand, and if anything, the right hand, I'm going to feel the middle 2 fingers and a little bit of my index finger that's pulling back. Really the 2 middle fingers of my right hand and the 3 on my left. Some players will say, hey, should I push down on my left? You can if that helps. I like to just put it on top. But if you want to push down, pull one more time. Up and down, up and down, up and down 3 times. Back, back, back. Combine, let's put that listening machine one more time. The 3 checkpoints are left wrist flat, right club hinge to 90, and it's on the plane. And if you're one of the players that I see that comes in, and you go way too long with your swing, and you way over hinge, and you want to feel less hinge, the more I hinge vertical with my left wrist, what does it do? Cups. If that's true, that means the more I bow my wrist or bend my right wrist back, that will make me hinge less. Which means if you hinge too much, your left wrist is almost for sure too cut. So if you feel like you bow your left wrist, get your knuckles away from your forearm, or bend your right wrist back more, that'll help you hinge less. If you need more hinge, you might feel like the wrist that cuts a little bit. So this is a little grip dependent. Okay? But if you want less hinge, you feel more bow of the left wrist, more bend back of the right wrist. Kind of like a John Robb. You would see he would hinge the least. If you want more hinge, maybe like a Roy McIlroy, you can add a little more extension to your left wrist. But you gotta have a grip to go along with it. Stronger grip, you can have a little bit more cut. weaker grip, you want to be a little bit more flat. But those three big ones, one more, I'll let you guys go. Those three keys, that's how you practice all those. That's kind of hinging simplified. The point of this video is that you hit those three checkpoints, you get the club on plane, left wrist flat, 90-degree hinge, and just complete your turn from there. It should set you up for success. The easiest drill that I know is that left wrist up, right wrist back, combine them, use video to confirm. If you want someone to look at your swing, you want to really improve, like we were able to make massive improvements because I was able to see that gentleman swing, whether it be in person or online. Go find a great coach to work with, or send your swings into GolfBarn-Golf.com so we can look at it for a fraction of the price and get world-class coaching and all the other stuff on the site. But hey, these are the priorities, these are the fields, these are the drills, this is what you expect. Great results there. We'd love to see you there at GolfBarn-Golf.com. All right, guys, in today's video, I'm going to show you a little trick with your trail arm during the downswing that I showed a new student of mine that will really help him out with his contact. It's a little micro move, but has a massive effect on your ball striking, your solid contact, consistency of contact.
He had such a special year. He came into this game with 73 pitches. 49ers, they got to the Super Bowl last year. They got to overtime in the Super Bowl and couldn't get it done against Kansas City. It's been a different story this year. We were here week 1, and the late news came down and Christian McCaffrey wouldn't be able to go. He only plays 4 games during the regular season. He's out. Trent Williams plays 10 games. Brandon Ayuk, 7 games. It's been a frustrating season for a very good team in the 49ers. Yeah, the well-coached team, a very talented team, and just dealing with a lot of injuries. The injuries occur throughout the league, as we know, but they have just decimated this San Francisco team. But you come into this game, a meaningless game for them, but don't tell Kyle Shanahan that because there's a lot that they're trying to build upon. They still got those that are healthy playing, guys like Nick Bosa, of course, and Brock Purdy. And for Brock Purdy, this is an opportunity for him because the first couple of years that he was the starter, everything was kind of perfect, and he had a lot of good players around him. He didn't have to do a lot. He played at a very high level. And then this year, because of those injuries, he's realized what life in the NFL is like for most quarterbacks. And he knows it, and he understands that there has been opportunity out there for him. He hasn't taken advantage of it. Tonight and next week are opportunities for him to show that he can carry a football team when he doesn't have the best talent around him. So these are important games for a lot of reasons. Yeah, he is eligible, by the way, for a new big contract. There is a lot on the line with Brock Purdy and for these 49ers in their own way here tonight. The Lions are getting set to go and take a break and come back and continue before this one matchup in Santa Clara. Okay, get on the next one.
Let's just get into one.
Yeah, just check it out.
Ah, I got it. Yeah, get loose.
Yeah, he's got this.
You guys this far. Kim's gonna finish the drive.
Yeah.
Your phone like everybody gets in real life, but at least there's bonus to protect your own auto.
Hey guys, let's talk about ESPN Bet, the sports wallet from your favorite sports brand. With ESPN Bet, you get a seamless, personalized experience, and with a couple of taps at market, you see the ESPN app to ESPN Bet. Start building your bet slips and add a profit boost to increase your winnings, or check out tons of parlays in the new Parlay Lounge. So easy, you can even sweat your bet alongside your favorite ESPN personalities, including me. So, what are you waiting for? Download today.
Show me your projects, your wonder kids, overnight successes, and we'll show you the late nights, the early risers, tough days, the relentless fighters, taking small steps forward to make the big things happen.
How was your vacation, son?
Well, I needed one.
We get 10% loyalty program discount. That's $254.
Not bad.
$155.
Hold up.
How? It's easy.
But you know what, too?
Trivago compares hotel prices from hundreds of sites, so you can save up to 40%.
Trivago's my secret.
Hotel. Trivago.
The best AI system isn't one that knows the whole world. It's one that knows your world. A custom system built on watsonx with IBM's brand models can leverage your trusted data and easily train your workflows and integrate with your apps. It can be told to do just what you need. Because the more AI knows about your world, IBM, that's right.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Roe now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with a formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one but two hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at roe.co/TV.
As we welcome you back, this place is packed, and we'll send it down to Lisa Salters for their performance above. Brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Lisa.
Hey Joe, well, how much that championship game loss is still on Detroit's mind, and how much of their motivation for revenge might be in this game depends on who you talk to. Head coach Dan Campbell said he is definitely still thinking about that game. Campbell said the last time we were here, they did what it took to win. We didn't. He said he still has a bad taste in his mouth and wants to try to right that wrong tonight. But receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown said he's not thinking about last year's playoff exit, telling me this is a big game because it's the next game. Running back Jameer Gibbs said he's not taking that playoff loss too personally either and warned against emotions overriding focus for Detroit in this game because the Lions are expecting a fight. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn called the 49ers prideful and tough and said San Francisco will be looking to, quote, kick someone's you-know-what tonight. They're not going to play down, Glenn said, and we are not. Joe?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And with regard to the Lions, they have said they're coming into this game full throttle, taking on the 49ers. Matchup just around the corner. You've been watching Progressive Monday Night Kickoff.
It's now so slow.
Then you can run Jersey Mike's. Is that Danny DeVito? Don't worry about me. This is a commercial for Jersey Mike's. And Jersey Mike's, the subs matter most. Freshly sliced right for the ends with masters here. Almost forgot. I found your ball. Where the subs matter most, it's a Jersey Mike's thing.
From concerts to sports and everything in between. 50 cents. Listen to Upset Stomach, a Beercast, Indigestion, a Beercast, Bloating, a Beercast. Extremely combination of words, a Beercast helps relieve 6 digestive symptoms to help you feel better. 6 digestive symptoms.
here for, I guess, my 100th mint person. It is unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. That's when I started as well, like 4 days. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? So I should be addicted to it. It's still $15 a month.
Production value. Save 35% and shop all your favorite brands. Enjoy the taste. Wine and dine. At prices you love, delivered fast. For low prices, for life and pets, there's Chewy. Yes! Sorry, you're a little nice for the fire. Cheers. It's really gonna do.
After careful review of medical guidance and research on pain, my recommendation: every home should have salon coffee. Powerful yet non-addictive, targeted and long-lasting. I recommend salon coffee. It's good medicine.
With car deliveries, you can start your financing from home. If only you could enjoy all the choices. Maybe someday you have. Get it with Thru.
Sunday at 3 on ABC and ESPN Plus.
ESPN welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
It's Monday night, so you know what time it is? It's time to finish what we started. Let's go!
Well, the fireworks, the flying over, the foghorn, the must be getting set to go. Here in week number 17 on a crisp night in Santa Clara, California. Glad you're with us tonight. 13-2 Lions taking on the 6-9 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, 8 years as the lead man here with San Francisco. He and the organization have come tantalizingly close twice in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is exactly where Dan Campbell and his crew want to end up in New Orleans. Super Bowl 59. Get through tonight. Look ahead to next week. And then home big against the Vikings. Debo is getting ready to go. I'm glad you're with us as the Lions want to toss. They defer. They're still playing the ball. Debo It's out to about the 38, maybe the 39, 36-yard return. And here comes Brock Purdy. He was fourth in the MVP voting last year. Took his team to the Super Bowl. There are the numbers. This year, he's regressed a bit. Their big offensive star and Christian McCaffrey has been available for only 4 games. His top target on the outside, Brandon Ayuk, only 7 games. And the offensive line, I'm looking. Tru's looking to see what the heck it is on their offensive line to start the game. We talked to Kyle Shanahan yesterday, and even he wasn't certain who was going to be starting. It's Charlie Heck starting at left tackle as Debo carries around the right side for 3. We'll look at the offense, which is called by Kyle Shanahan, where they are in points per game. Isaac Guerrero is making his 3rd NFL start, and they don't have a bunch of guys up front. So Charlie Heck is at left tackle. They've got Nick Zakow in at left guard. And McKinnon's is good enough to get a go out at right tackle. He was really iffy all week. Here's a pass caught by Conley and a nice chunk of yards for a 1st down. And as Chris gets 13, right through the heart of the defense, coordinated by Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn, and talking with him, the injuries that we've seen on the offensive side for the San Francisco 49ers, he certainly has experienced on the defensive side this year. And he's not going to change his style of play. They're going to be aggressive, come after the quarterback, play tight man coverage as often as possible. Here is Debo on the carry out of the backfield, coming off his best game down in Miami. Debo is able to pick up 4. That's what it's saying. Offensively for the 49ers here since we had the offense. We're going to see a lot of Debo Samuel tonight. And a lot of along the lines of what we saw from him when he started playing more as a running back in the backfield because of some of the injuries. He's had those injuries at the running back position, but that's really where he's most effective. There's an out. Get down that little toss around the right side, and Debo's got a 1st down for San Francisco. Got a good block from Kyle Juszczyk all the way and picked up 9. Debo Samuel, see if they can't get the ball in his hands. Let him be as much of a runner tonight as he is a receiver. Kyle Juszczyk out there on the edge really doing a nice job. Shanahan understands that this is a defense that is hard to run the football against. They're very stingy when it comes to giving up yards on the ground, and yet he knows in order to protect his offensive line, he's got to be able to stick with the running game. Where he can't right here. And right now, the 49ers having their way, 18-yard completion to George Kittle. Well, the play action in the backfield, you're going to see the effect that it has on the Detroit Lions and how it opens up things then in behind. Campbell, he comes up, he's anticipating run, gets lost in coverage, and Kittle, who's had an outstanding year, 3 bright spots for the San Francisco team, makes a nice catch on the ball. He's knocking on the door on his 4th career 1,000-yard season. Rendell flips it, able to hang on as Ricky Pearsall. Got around 1 defender, and then leaps. Navigated the play, forced out by Kirby Joseph, but ends up picking up 3rd. I think when he gets this ball, watch Purdy, it looks like he thinks that he's going to get because he's out front, he's looking. And whether or not that was going to be a pass or if he was just simply going to block out in front of the offensive lineman, they hold their ground, so they're not getting downfield. So with the ball in the backfield, just unable to do that. Maybe a little trickery by the 49ers giving the Lions some of their own medicine. No team better at that than Detroit. Here's a toss going to the left side. Out of bounds at the 5. Kirby Joseph there for Detroit. A gain of 5. It's a 3rd down and 1. Well, we talked about George Kittle and what kind of year he has had. He's also arguably the best blocking tight end in the him out front along with Houston, and that's a pretty nice pickup. So this opening drive here for San Francisco, it's gone, as well as Kyle Shanahan did on where he keeps, gets pushed, won't get it, it's broke down. And in one would assume that the 49ers, who are 6-9, will go ahead and go for it on fourth down, they will. Yeah, I think so, and I think also, and it's easy to say they're out of the playoff contention when they had to lose, but I also think that Kyle Shanahan understands what he's up against on the other side of things. But the Detroit's offense and the way that they are aggressive ball for on fourth down, they're going to score some points here tonight. And a big shift to offensive line on 4th down and 1. Bring it again, and he got it. 6-1, 220. And able to follow him for first down for San Francisco. And not all 4th and 1s are equal. And that was a full yard. And we're not talking slow. That was a nice job up front getting some movement and then Curry getting it. What I'm just trying to do what they haven't done. Touchdown this year, get an opening drive touchdown. First and goal. Here we go. DJ Reader right there in the middle of it for Detroit. And now, looks like Juwan Jennings is getting into it with Terry Arnold. And flags fly at the end of that play, way out of the back of the end zone. Yeah, away from everything. Juwan Jennings, he's blocking. And he just continues through the whistle out the back of the end zone. And Terry, I mean, there they go. Yeah, Kirby Joseph, he comes in and he kind of excites things even more. And the officials huddling out to try and sort through it. Sean Hockley is our referee tonight. Joseph ends up being the third man in. And we're in hockey and we're still trying to figure out who's going to be penalized for what happened out the back of the end. Juwan Jennings just did not stop with his block. And I think that started a few plays ago as well. Like I said, Detroit plays very physical. A lot of their hours, all female play. After the play was over, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, 15 in the offense. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, 31 in the defense. These penalties all said that down counts is second down. Yeah, number 15 San Francisco starts the action with number 0 Detroit, but then 31 Detroit comes in well after the play and hits 15. If he hadn't done it, it would just been on San Francisco. So, like it didn't happen. But it didn't happen. Except for whoever that poor person walked down, that poor soul got run over. In the back of the end zone, up against that other wall. That's just another example. Don't tell me that these teams, this team doesn't fit. Rolling left, Purdy, throws, caught. Short of the end zone. Pearsall. Well, that's hard to do because he got into the end zone and then he comes back as he catches it when he has control. It's a question for us of when he had control, because initially it sure looked like he had it while he was still in the end zone. Yeah, Troy, I agree. It looks like he has control with the ball over in the end zone. The forward progress pushes him back to me. That's a touchdown. Challenge flag has been Kyle Shanahan. There's a good throw by Brock Purdy as well. That was tight coverage. Ryan Brandon coverage on him. Replay assistance provided information, and it is a touchdown. It's a touchdown. What a good drive. And as good as they could have hoped for, his work in perfection. They got that fourth down conversion, and then the touchdown here. An outstanding drive. And you can't talk enough about how difficult it is to put together a game plan when you're not even sure who your offensive line starters are going to be. And I thought Kyle Shanahan, as you would expect, one of the best play callers in all of football. He mixed it up, hit the edges, hit it inside, mixed in the play action passing, and then finished it off there in the red zone. Another area where they have struggled this year is an outstanding way to open up this game. Jake Moody for the extra point. And a 7-0 start. Ricky Pearsall gets his second NFL touchdown. His first since week 10 in Tampa Bay. One start for the 49ers. Touchdown.
Sometimes life is very surprising. Thanks to John, we get fee-free overdrafts. Payday when you say. And easy credit. We're making everyday life easier. That's why John is the #1 most loved banking app. You know this person?
Is your cat getting too cool? Give him to the patient's treats.
Celebrate up to 50% off savings with the clearance event at Target. Hurry in! Clearance deals go fast. Shop in stores now up to 50% off only at Target. This week at Macy's, get our lowest prices of the season for your home. Make more room for the family with our best-selling Bradley sectional. Update your bedroom with our Network Queen bed. Plus, don't miss great financing through Wednesday at Macy's.
Games are back. Which means it's time to show up in Orlando. Here's what tickets to the Switch Box. Take the games and the flag football finale to the max level. Look for all games presented by Verizon. They're pretty second. Tickets on sale now.
ABC Hockey Saturday. These Capitals on Saturday on ABC and ESPN Plus.
That was on Monday. That's what he said publicly. Again, for the Lions, the division and the #1 seed, and Detroit's never been a #1 seed, comes down to next week with their home date against the Minnesota Vikings. Privately and to his team, talked to one of his top players today. He said, Dan Campbell said, we are going full throttle. Going to try to get the win tonight to the surprise of absolutely no one. Yes, and it is the message that you would expect. I really feel Dan Campbell reminds me so much of Jimmy Johnson, the guy I played for, a Hall of Fame coach. And, you know, their styles are a little different, but they go about it the same way. And I'm not surprised that Campbell has said that. And that's been the message of this team all week, and that's what they're here to do. John Kennedy on the return, and he's out to the 45. Return of 28, and here comes Jared Goff, who in many ways is having his best season. Here's what he's done since that 5-interception game, which was a win. By the way, in Houston, he's got 17 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's averaging over 330 passing yards a game. Well, I mean, he's the reason they're where they are, what they've been able to accomplish. Jameson Williams is met immediately by Isaac Yellow. Ben Johnson, he won't be behind head coaching candidate this offseason yet again. The second straight year, you see what they're doing, leading the league in points scored. Jameer Gibbs is over 50. the job overall, I think, that Nick Sorensen has done. When you talk to Kyle Shanahan and ask him, of course, in his first year, he's real pleased with the job that he's done in that in-game, the adjustments that he's made, but, with some of the injuries again. But, let's go back to that opening drive that San Francisco had to come away with that touchdown against this defense. That's a bit of a concern. Gibbs has got a first down. In a 6. Now, we talk about San Francisco and how beat up they are. Everyone understands the Detroit Lions are as well on the defensive side of the ball. And for that offense to make it look as easy as they did, it's another reason why you're talking about Jared Goff and how well he's playing and how well he's going to have to continue to play in order for this team to ultimately reach the goals that they have set for themselves. Gibbs gets it. Goff just able to get it to him, and a big carry by Jameer Gibbs. Finds again and missed a tackle along the way, and it's a 21-yard carry by Jameer Gibbs, who was just getting better and better, and now taking on a bulk of the work with the injury to Montgomery. Yeah, when you get a wide zone play like this, sometimes a quarterback, if you get it back with the speed that Jameer Gibbs has, you see Goff that he's got to extend himself. He almost doesn't even get the handoff out there at all because how fast Gibbs is. Great job up front, and Jameer Gibbs coming off a big game last week. He can certainly carry the ball. Jamison Williams with that. And it's a losing yardage on the play. Team Richards got through, and it's a loss of 5. He's got Shane Sills for number 84. He's going to run the post. So, yeah, you were right, Joe. They get the ball to Jamison Williams. This is going to be one of those trick plays, and they've got a chance if he's able to pull up and throw the post across the field. He had a lot of open area to lay that ball for an opportunity, but because he wasn't able to, he wisely was able to just try to get what he was, which wasn't anything. After that loss of 5, Frank's front Reynolds on the catch. Down the straight line and out of bounds to the 10. You got Jared Goff saying that it's on the 49ers.
Illegal contact. Defense number 0. This penalty decline is the good result in that first down.
And a 26-yard catch and run by Craig Reynolds. Well, this offense, you get them backed up and they're so long, and it really just doesn't seem to matter that much. That you tend to look at this offense and think they're all done the play action in the running game. But when they get into long down situations, they're some of the best in the league at converting those into first down. So they're unfazed, even once they get behind the sticks. Lions bring in extra offensive linemen. They also bring in Jamar Jefferson, and they've got Mahogany, who made the start last week, and Dan Skipper in there. And those two guys go in motion and are on the left. So that's a lot of beat over on that left side of the line. Jefferson runs behind it and gets down to the 1. A gain of 8. And Skipper, he gets as much of a workout running in and out from the sideline as that offensive line. He really does. That's a big man. I mean, look at the job that he does. I mean, he's moving bodies right there. That was Leonard Floyd, and he gets out of the way. And Jefferson, he's one-on-one on down the over and over. I think if I was running the ball, I would have gone to that left side as well. Skipper and Mahogany throw over 3 strong. Here's Jefferson. A nice play. No surprise for the corner. As good as there is a linebacker in the NFL, also too. And Fred Warner, he dissects things as well as anybody in the game. You keep an eye on him and how he just sees it, and then he knows where his opportunity and his crease is, and he hits it. He's a fun guy to watch. Gibbs comes back in, 3rd down and goal. Williams gets it, looking for a block. Touchdown, Lions. And got that block from Brand Blasco. Well, with the first line will board up the field, it took out 249ers and almost there. That's the point is blocked. And now Warner's going to pick it up and try to go downfield, but he gets brought to the ground with Silstra. Blocked by Jordan Elliott. And after the Lions get their 25th rushing touchdown of the year, Jordan Elliott can't up. Blocks the extra points. 49ers up one.
Tech companies are building their own energy plants to power their AI. Well, if they had SAP, they could have skilled professionals running those plants from day one, which would be good.
I'm always counting the big floor.
If you don't have the right auto coverage, this can really blow your budget.
USAA, you can be eligible if your spouse, parent, or even your grandparents serve.
What's that? You're a man.
As a veteran, I'm free in. USAA, are you eligible?
Those new tiles are falling right into place until you run out of, what are those called again? That's it. For doing that doesn't stop, download the Home Depot app.
Come home for the holidays to Disney Plus. Let's go. Now bundle subscribers can watch like Hulu and ESPN Plus favorites on Disney Plus. It's just right this holiday season. There's something for everyone on Disney Plus.
What? Triple A auto insurance.
Our teams don't know about a smart plan and even smarter price.
Now with Kroger Boost, you can choose from Disney Plus, Hulu, or PS Plus on us.
ESPN Monday Night Football brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Stay with you on auto, home, or motorcycle insurance. And Visa. Visa, everywhere you want to be. Levi's Stadium, Santa Clara, California. 11 years has been home to the 49ers. 7-6 game. 45 miles south of San Francisco down the 101 for that Northern California kid, Jared Goff. You guys team right down the field into the end zone, but the extra point is blocked. It's a 7-6 game. Jameson Williams, his first rushing touchdown of the year. Trailing. As Gibbs leads the league in touchbacks. Adds it up. Talking about the Lions' defensive injuries, and I'd say that's a pretty long list. You see up front, including Abe Hutchinson, he went down as the leading the league in sacks with 7.5. The first 5 games before he broke his leg at Dallas in the middle of October. Lost 3 really good linebackers, and then 3 guys on the back end. But here they are, with a record of 13-2. Good game against the Vikings next Sunday night. Play action to the window, and the flag flies, and Purdy is brought down for the sack. Indication is it's against Detroit.
Holding. Defense number 69. Automatic. First down.
It's outputting Muhammad, who is guilty of a hold, but instead of stepping across 3, that moves the ball up to the 35. Yeah, that's what I thought here, Joe. That George Kittle, he's trying to get out into the route off of the play action. And outputting Muhammad, he grabs a hold of him, doesn't allow him. It's a nice job by the officials catching that. Because they held him, Purdy, he was left with nowhere really going to football. able to secure that toss, and then he gets hit by Jack Campbell. Wow. And we highlighted Fred Warner ago, and Jack Campbell, he basically does the exact same thing coming back the other way. What year he is at? He reads it right away, and he hits it. He's always been good against the run. Last year, he struggled a little bit in coverage, but he's been one of the better linebackers in the NFL. He's being right up, put a big lick on him. Yeah, because as we show you all those injuries, he's been shuffling more inside, and he has really thrived. An inside linebacker, made a play there, second there. 30, Correcto. One tackle, takes it across the 40, third down coming up. Jack Campbell almost made a play on that one as well. Going back to you talk about these injuries that Detroit has had, and Aaron Glenn really having to piece this thing together. So over the last 4 games, 2 of those were against the Chicago Bears, and they shut them down. The other 2 games against Green Bay and Buffalo, not so much. Green Bay scored 31 points, Buffalo scores 48. And they know they're going to be facing some good offenses in the NFL. So this is a good test against an offense that's Pearsall caught it. Oh. How about a one-handed juggling catch? He secured it going out of bounds. That's such a great job by Brock Purdy. It's a great catch by Pearsall, but Purdy, because he's feeling pressure, he has to let go of this ball long before Pearsall gets at the top of his route. So he's got to come out of the route and then look for the ball, and it's away from him, and then be able to make that catch and keep his feet in bounds. That's a great job by both the quarterback and wide receiver. Now Correcto. A couple of tackles on his way to a nice run as he gets 11. This offensive line short again has Charlie Heck, who was added from the practice squad of Arizona at left tackle, hits the cow. A third-year player in left guard, Brendel, Mooney, and McKibbitz. They've done a nice job so far. They've done an outstanding job. When you talk about Charlie Heck, what helped him in terms of getting ready this week when he was brought in, is when he was with the Texans, he played for Bobby Sloan. So Bobby Sloan can get in this offense, so let the city turn it off. Here's Campbell wide open. First down inside the 15. Well, that play action is giving the defense just overflow. You can see what it does. It's everybody running this way, and then Kittle's going to come in behind it. Really good work. Might be trying to get a 3-5 as we're against the end of the first quarter. This guy. They blew it dead. They blew it dead. Thrown it down as DJ Reader came across. You got the Lions reporting the 49ers. I'm not so sure. I think he was able to draw them off.
Encouragement. Defense number 98 before this down. There's a 5-yard penalty. Breakaway first down. Please reset the game clock. 6 seconds. Thank you.
Dan Campbell, he cannot believe it. DJ Reader is who they got. And, you know, when we visited with Dan Campbell, he was saying it doesn't matter who's playing or not playing. All the things that we've got to get better on is all about focus, attention to detail, effort. And this, I know, he is not pleased at all right now. And that's the end of the first quarter. George Kittle is at over 1,000 yards for the season. Rematch of last season's NFC champion. A 7-6 49ers victory.
The Thompsons need to do it, right?
We were down and talking about their young couple returning to their parents' neighborhood. Is their life?
Who's visiting first?